You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidi, and it's time for our hashtag Africa Focus feature. This is a part of the show where we look at the biggest and most pressing stories across the African continent. And this time around, we'll be looking at Sudan, where we've essentially entered more than 1,000 days of the war in Sudan, a conflict that has pushed the country into what the United Nations has essentially called it the world's worst humanitarian and health crisis, with millions being displaced, hospitals under attack, and hunger spreading faster than aid can reach. We'll be unpacking what this milestone means, more than 1,000 days of this war, and how it has essentially morphed, how it has changed, where we are seeing starvation, where we are seeing sexual violence being used as weapons of genocide. And we'll be doing that with a very, very good friend of the show, Brother Ramadan Ahmed Birima is the editor of SudanHorizon.com. He's also a journalist and political analyst, and we'll be trying to get insight on what this grim milestone essentially means for the people of Sudan on the ground and where Sudan goes from here. Brother Ramadan, salamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Salelo.
And I think we'll jump right into it. Just a few days ago, I note and marked that we've essentially entered more than 1,000 days of the war in Sudan. It sounds like an abstract figure, but what does this milestone, if I can call it that, what does it mean on the ground, especially for civilians across Khartoum, across Darfur, and the Kordofan regions?
Thank you very much, Brother Salelo, for hosting me. And it is highly appreciated that Salam Media is highlighting the plight of the Sudanese people who have been displaced, who have been suffering for the last 1,000 days, as you just mentioned. The developments on the ground at the moment is that RSF has never ceased committing atrocities. Atrocities are being committed on daily basis. And I think 2 days ago, there was drone shelling on one of the cities in West Kordofan, that is Deleng, that is South Kordofan province, with 5 children actually were killed. And it is, as I said, it is a daily occurrence. About 3 hospitals in a small town have been out of service at the moment because of having experienced bombardment by drones from the RSF. RSF has never ceased its offensive against civilians over the last 1,000 days. Yesterday, there was a meeting at the International Security Council. And as you know, these international bodies are toothless. They are just state the situation on what happened on the ground. They exactly said what is happening on the ground, and that the deputy prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, that her name's Nazhat Shamim Khan, stated that the office of the prosecutor considers that war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed in Al-Fashir in Western Sudan, particularly in October, based on information and evidence collected. So this is what she said. And but on the ground, that's in October. October is now about 3 months now. But within this period, a lot has been done, and the civilians have been suffering at the hands of the RSF. This is the unfortunate part. It is possible that the geopolitical development that happened in the Middle East may have impacted or may have impact on the ground, which will allow the Sudanese armed forces to have the upper hand on the ground in order to to fight the RSF and dismantle it. That's the only hope. But until that happens, definitely the civilians are continuously suffering.
Mm, 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 mm. And with that comes, the effects of the fighting. We've seen in recent days where you have outbreaks of cholera, outbreaks of malaria, and I think measles also have also been reported in multiple states across Sudan. These diseases, how do you think they are interacting with the displacement of the Sudanese people as we've been seeing, and also how the conflict has essentially morphed, where we are seeing large cases of sexual violence and starvation, the hoarding of aid to not reach, the Sudanese people. Can you touch a bit on that, the humanitarian aspect of it, and how the average Sudanese people are now bearing the brunt of this violence?
In fact, the RSF has never officially allowed aid assistance to, aid convoys to reach to the areas where people are suffering. There are people who are walking in the bush. They are fleeing the areas that are being bombarded by the RSF. Only when they entered into the government controlled areas, only then they get some kind of assistance. Although it is very little, but still it's only in these areas that they can get the assistance. Just imagine over the last three weeks or so, the RSF threatened two major cities in Kurdistan that the civilians must evacuate these two cities. Just imagine a city of more than 200,000 or even close to 1 million. You expect these people to come out of the cities to go where? This is one of the shocking things that happen from the RSF side. They want the citizens to evacuate these two cities. Some of them, in fact, have started evacuating the cities, and you can imagine the level of atrocity the people are being exposed to. My nephew fled from Deleng, and him and his youngsters of his age. He is about 17 years old, and he told me that some of his colleagues got shot by the RSF. They were intimidated along the roads, and some of them got killed. Many of my family members in Kadugli and Deleng, they walked out of these two cities in order to go for to safety areas, and they tell me something that I don't think I can find words to express the suffering through which civilians have been exposed to in order to reach safety. One of the elements that complicated the situation is that RSF abducts civilians, and then they search their phones and they communicate with the relatives, whether inside Sudan or outside Sudan, to send money into their bank accounts, or otherwise these relatives would be killed. This is a daily occurrence at the moment, let alone cases of rape. You can't even talk about it. Cases of rape, killing, indiscriminate killings, and something that you can't even imagine. If RSF was not sponsored by some regional forces, definitely the whole media in the world must have been highlighting these calamities of the innocent people. Unfortunately, the United Arab Emirates continues to support arms and to send arms to the RSF and provide all the logistics that it requires to continue perpetrating all these kind of crimes against humanity, as mentioned by the ICC.
Mm, mm, mm. There are recent developments that there are, peace efforts, peace talks that are currently ongoing in Cairo, Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. What do you make of that? What's your analysis of Egypt's involvement and the conversations that are being had in Cairo to find, I don't know, ceasefire corridors to be open and ultimately a permanent kind of solution for Sudan?
In fact, as I alluded in the beginning, that there are some kind of regional geopolitical transformations that will impact positively on Sudan. You might have heard that Yemen, what happened in Yemen, that Saudi Arabia and UAE entered into conflict in what happened in Yemen, and Saudi Arabia had to take very decisive steps to expel the United Arab Emirates from Yemen, and it happened. There is some kind of loggerheads between the two countries at the moment, given that the two countries represent two elements of the quartet, which consists of the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and United States. Now, the quartet is no more functional, and it looks like Saudi Arabia is now pushing very hard to limit the UAE influence in the region. There is the meeting that took place in Cairo is trying to come up with a new proposal that may impose some kind of sanctions or some kind of restriction on the movement of arms into Sudan through Libya and through other corridors. It looks like this strategy will work, because what the Sudanese army wants or have been pressurizing for is to find a way to stop the United Arab Emirates from sending arms and all the logistics to the RSF. So, what the meeting that you mentioned in Egypt comes in that context, and there is a discussion that the Jeddah Agreement, which was signed in October 2020, I think 23, in the beginning of the war, that initiative is going to be activated, and that initiative stipulates that RSF must collect its armies in safe areas and get out of the cities and the places that it occupies, and then there could be some kind of negotiation on how to disarm these elements, because these are paramilitary forces. So anyway, there is a very good geopolitical transformation in the region, and I think the Saudi Arabia is working very hard. It definitely has taken a very big shift in its position towards what happens in Sudan, and it is a very positive position, and it has thrown its weight on on what's happening in favor of the Sudanese armed forces, in the sense that the Sudanese armed forces is the only entity that is capable of maintaining peace and security in the country and protecting the civilians. And this is what is happening practically at the moment. Whenever the citizens flee from the RSF controlled areas, they go to the army controlled areas where they find safety. So this is what Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and other allies may be working for. The United Arab Emirates is going to be excluded now, and they are trying to restrict its movement and the aid that it is supporting to the RSF. So this is a very positive development.
And speaking of developments, I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, where Sudanese plenipotentiary minister at the United Nations was speaking and was essentially urging the ICC to fast track arrest warrants over alleged genocide in Darfur against the UAE. How significant is this move, both politically and legally, and does it meaningfully raise the stakes for the RSF and its alleged backers?
I think there before this incident that you are alluding to, the ICC has gone very far as, the issue was tabled actually before, and the United Arab Emirates was sued in the criminal court. But unfortunately, as you know, the that country is paying, and these days, if you got money, you got international influence, and the superpowers are supporting you, especially the Western world. If they are supporting you, then you can do away with whatever crime that you can commit. And we have seen this in Gaza. I don't think there is any part of the world where crimes have been committed blatantly, right in front of the media, but nobody is arrested. So what happens in the ICC, it might not have a direct impact on the ground, but at least morally, there is kind of indictment. This is moral indictment for all the supporters who are supporting what is going on against civilians in Darfur. So in that sense, yeah, it is meaningful. And whatever indictment against United Arab Emirates or request for warrant of arrest against the RSF leaders and so on, this is a kind of moral support, and it is meaningful in that sense. But you don't expect definitely somebody who is supported by the international major players to be arrested because of having committed atrocities. In fact, these atrocities are in a way or another supported by these superpowers. Unfortunately, this is the world where we live. This is the unfortunate part.
Most definitely. Finally, before I let you go, Brother Ramadan, just looking ahead, what would you say are some of the most realistic prospects for Sudan in 2026, both in terms of immediate humanitarian relief and what needs to be happening in that aspect, and also just longer term political solutions as we head into the new year?
I think in terms of humanitarian aid, yes, there is a dire need for humanitarian aid. There's no question about that, especially in the government-controlled areas, because people now, civilians, are fleeing, as I said, from the RSF-controlled areas to government-controlled areas. And people now are living in camps, and they are in dire need, where international humanitarian organizations are required to be present. As far as the future is concerned, the good news is that the government forces, which is with its popular resistance, are now making victories on the ground, and they have made advancements on the battlefield, which actually give good news that as soon as the RSF is dismantled, the whole country will live in peace. And then there comes the political process. The political process is very simple. And I think every Sudanese layman can know what exactly is supposed to be, is that there should be some transitional period during which the country will be prepared for an election. And that election will bring all the political forces without exception to contest the elections and present their programs to the Sudanese people. So this is the only time that we are looking forward to seeing the will of the people represented in the ballot box. And that is what is anticipated to be. There is no any political forces that can be allowed to take office without elections.
Most definitely, Ramadan Ahmed Birima. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on air and for giving us those important insights on Sudan, a conversation that definitely needs to continue being heard. Really appreciate it.
Shukran jazilan. Shukran.
And with that, we've come to the end of our hashtag Africa Focus feature with the sharp analytic focus on Sudan. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.